So this is a question, well, rather, something that I've heard and read about from colleagues and online, other developers. So essentially, the context behind it is you're coming out of an educational system of some kind, whether it's boot camp or whatever it might be, and you're being urged, pressured, whatever you want to call it, let's say pressured, into grabbing the first job that comes your way as a programmer. And it part of that might be, well, it's a hard industry to get into, especially if you're new, and just you got to just take the bull by the horns and go for it. So whatever comes your way, just grab it and go. And there are some underlying assumptions made, such as, well, if you're educated and knowledgeable in a certain type of development field. So let's say that you come out as a back-end developer. There's no reason why you couldn't tackle front-end development, which is a bit of a gap between back-end and front-end, and so there's an assumption there that, hey, we've taught you these things. These are principles you can carry through in other types of jobs. So just grab whatever comes your way. You need to get started. You need to jump in, feet first, get going. And so I've been asked whether that's actually something that's, whether it's an appropriate way to move your career forward or to start it. And at first I thought, man, that's a rather loaded question, because, for example, if you're in a country where jobs are scarce and you need a job, like you need to feed your family, you need to feed your kids. I apologize for the background noise. If I say don't grab the first job you can get your hands on, especially in the field such as ours, being a programmer, where it might be easier to get jobs like that, there might be more opportunities to get jobs like that. If I say no, don't do that, I felt like, people can say, well, what a jerk, he's telling me not to provide for my family. But I really thought about it quite a bit, and I think I've come to a pretty hard stance on why you shouldn't do that if you can possibly avoid doing it. Hopefully, if I expound on it a bit, it will clarify itself. So let me start off with, these principles are applicable to almost any job type. So you don't have to be a programmer or a developer. But what I will say up front is that as a developer of any kind, whether it's back-end, front-end, full stack, DB, security, quality assurance even, anywhere in that technological spectrum of jobs, I feel like the technology space in general, you have a lot more eyeballs on you. We're saturated. Technology is everywhere, right? So if you work in some level at a company that's centered around technology, especially at a company that has a lot of eyeballs around technology, and you make a mistake, you're going to get noticed very quickly. And if you're starting out, you're going to be on a probationary period. That could mean an instant fire if you make a big enough mistake. If you mess with the experience and quality of a system that is used by thousands, if not millions of people, and you make even a small mistake, that instantly gets eyeballs on you. Questions have to be asked and answered. And then that's incumbent on you to take that on. That's not as typical in other fields of work as it is in the development community. And maybe I'm wrong about that because that's all I have experience in. But it does mean this. Let's assume for a moment that You are, imagine yourself, if you aren't actually in this place, you are a fresh graduate, or you are in a country where jobs are scarce, but technology jobs are more abundant, if you will, let's say that. And you have the opportunity to take one on. Maybe you're self-taught in a country like that, and you could reasonably take on something. Okay, cool. And perhaps out of desperation, or perhaps because you think you just need to get started, you take on something that you can't actually take on. So you're a back-end developer. Man, there are so few back-end development jobs. What am I going to do? Oh, wait, there's a whole bunch of front-end development jobs. I can apply for those. So you apply because you think, hey, I know back-end development. How different can it possibly be? And then you get responses. Hey, yeah, we'd love to have you on board as a front-end developer. So right away, you're setting yourself up with a high chance of failure, because you're purposefully, knowingly taking on something you know very little, if anything, about, and then you're also representing yourself as such to the company that wants to hire you. What's more, it might be even worse if the company knows that's not your strength. So if a company knows you're a back-end developer and they still want to hire you as a front-end developer because that's how desperate they are to get developers in-house, man, that's even worse, because it's an indication that the company is already in a bad place and they're desperate to get people on board, to get human bodies on code. They don't realize that doing that, including someone who doesn't truly know how to hit the ground running, just adds more junk to an already existing junk pile that they're desperate to fix. So just like the whole thing just starts off on a bad foot in either direction, right? Why would you want to knowingly go into that? And then what's more, if you do that and you make a mistake, and let's say you get fired, or even if you don't get fired, but you do get asked a lot of questions, you get, thoroughly reviewed for your work, you've set yourself up, rather what you've accomplished is giving people the perception of you that is, I failed. And I knowingly failed. I took a massive risk that either I lied about and said I could handle the risk when I really couldn't, or I'm dumb. I don't really know what I know, and so I was like, oh, I'll just take this risk and whatever, or some third or fourth or fifth option, whatever it is. It's a negative view. You've created a scenario that projects a negative view of yourself. If you're desperate to get into the industry, or you're desperate for a job, how does doing that actually solve your problems? If say, for example, jobs are scarce, how does taking the first thing that comes your way, having a high risk of failure from the start, knowingly, failing at it, and then being the guy that failed at that, how does that help set you up for your future job prospects? And how does that make you feel internally? How do you feel about your next job? How do you feel about taking on the next job then? Just the whole thing, it's not good. If you can possibly avoid it, avoid it. If you're in a place where you can show some care and attention into your career and where you want to go, and it really matters to you that you have a job for whatever reason it might be, and it really matters to you that you be successful, and it really matters to you that you make a name for yourself, and it really matters to you that you feel good at the end of the day about what you're doing as a programmer, etc., 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 take the time to care about what you're getting yourself into. And that has more to do with knowing your own strengths and limitations, and definitely in part, some awareness of what you're entertaining as a job prospect and whether those two match or not. Is it the best possible match you can get in a reasonable context, whatever that may be? And that's a personal thing for you, right? Unless you don't care about what you're doing, in which case get a government job. I know people who have or had government jobs, and it's like a clock in, clock out, soul sucking programmer job. It can be, anyways. More often than not, it is, from my experience. Unless you're in that kind of a situation, and it just doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't matter that much to you. Fine, okay. But if it actually matters to you, and if you really are desperate, and it is an opportunity that's open to you, and you can make something out of it, then make something out of it, and take the time to care about it, take the time to think about it, take the time to consider where you are and what your options are. Don't rush in. Don't increase your chance for failure because it's already high when you're fresh and starting out. Your chance for failure is it's guaranteed you're going to fail as you're starting out. And it's guaranteed you're going to fail moving forward as well, but even more so when you're starting out. So why take the risk? Why increase that chance? Just don't do it. Think about what you're getting yourself into and what it means for you in the long term. That's probably the best advice I can offer in such a situation. And if anyone is pressuring you to just jump in and take whatever you get, they probably haven't considered you as thoughtfully as they should have. That would be my opinion. It would be more thoughtful of a person to encourage you to do something that makes you successful, especially in a risky job like being a programmer, where your failures can be very exposed. That's how you should be encouraged, not the other way around. So, anyways, I think I've beaten this horse to death. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope the advice is useful to you. I know that it's not that easy. There are circumstances that are extenuating and whatnot, and you have to decide for yourself. So this is not a blanket statement, but I do highly encourage you to consider it. Thanks for watching. In future videos, I'll cover more stuff around this topic, like what kinds of things can you do if you can't find a job in the area that you've educated yourself in. What could you do instead? There are some tips that might be helpful to you, things like that. So hopefully you'll tune in again as I keep making these. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon.